Okay, guys, welcome back to another Chengdu Film Society movie podcast. This is episode 9 of the podcast.
Yeah, 9. That's nice.
We're doing pretty well with these. We've been quite consistent. Yeah, hopefully we'll get to double digits as well. Yeah. So it's on today's podcast. It's myself and Arman.
Hi. Yeah.
And we've also got 2 special guests. Let's welcome back Matt.
Hey guys.
Yeah, and first-time podcaster Ben.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Okay, so before we get into the movies, let's talk a little bit about our guests. You guys will remember Matt from a couple of months back. Very, very big film fan, has some very strong opinions on films, and makes us all look like amateurs. So thank you for joining us again, Matt. Ben, this is your first podcast. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let's just get to know you a little bit so the guys at home can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay, sure.
So we've been running the movie night for quite a long time now, but you're quite a recent guest. You only discovered us, I guess, last month. Is that right?
Yeah, last month.
Cool. So I'd like to ask you, like, how did you discover Chengdu Film Society?
I had a friend, Alex, and Mark. They had this activity last month. They had some foreign guests talk about the experience in China. So that's where I met Arman. And he introduced me to this movie night.
I see. Arman, the marketing man.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, he's great at this.
Yeah, I think so.
Marketing, yeah.
Yeah. No, I would say that movie night's become a lot more popular since Arman took over the marketing and promotion responsibility. Yeah.
That's great.
Beauty and brains, isn't it?
I guess so. Yeah. So you've been to movie night a couple of times now, right?
3 times, I think.
Cool. Okay. And I'd like to ask you, like, how's your experience of movie night been? And, like, have you enjoyed the experience? Tell us about it.
I think it's a great place to hang with people. And yeah, I had a few complaints back then.
Okay.
But not so much now.
Okay. All right. That's cool. I mean, I'm okay with hearing the complaints, but
Oh well, the seats.
oh, okay.
Right.
All right. Well, no, I totally understand. If you don't have the sofa, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure you get here early so you can get the couch.
That's
Sofa.
yes.
Yeah.
Good advice for all movie night guests. We like people who come early.
Yeah.
Then we don't have latecomers interrupting the movie 10, 15 minutes into it.
The worst thing is someone coming in 20 minutes in and then looking at you in an annoyed way and being like, why is there not a good seat for me? It's because you're here at 8:30.
Yeah. Well, I think the one good thing about having quiet nights at movie night is that almost everyone gets a good seat. You can squeeze 4, 5, about 7 people onto these sofas, and then with the other seats, you can maybe add extra cushions. You can get some extra leg room.
That's very good marketing. The less people come to the movie night, the more comfortable we get.
Yeah, dude, so this is why Armand does their marketing and promotion. But when we have lots of people, and we have had quite a few people recently, we do as best as we can to get as many people in here as comfortably as possible. But on the nights where there's like 35 people, yeah, there's probably going to be 1 or 2.
Well, another advice. I can. The second best seat is by that corner.
That is a good corner, isn't it?
Yeah, against the wall because the wall will block a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you can see them.
Yeah.
And when you can see them, they don't exist.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
It's just like a few people in front of you.
So a lot of people like to kind of sit here, but we try to put quite a few seats back there as well.
This area is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do try to tell people, but they look at you and they're like, no.
Yeah. And actually, the low key, like, secret best spot is right there, where you can lean against. Do you see that little kind of aisle area there?
Yeah.
You can lean against the back, and you can.
It's not like a couple spot, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
They were cuddling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This is good for starting a podcast, showing things.
Yeah, sorry, the guys listening, you probably makes no sense to you. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining us, Ben and Matt, on today's podcast. So, Arman, it's been a pretty good month of movies, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's been great. I'd wager that it's arguably been our best month since we came to Tongzilin for movies, I think.
I mean,
In terms of films shown, arguably. Just because it was International Month,
yeah,
it was quite diverse and we went to different pockets of the world.
we did.
I guess for turnout and earlier in the year, there were some of the Oscar movies. Those were quite good, but I just like the variety of the ones we showed this month and the conversations we had. So I really enjoyed this month. It was really cool. And it was really interesting researching the movies and trying to promote them. And yeah, it was great.
I think a really good diverse range of movies this month in terms of like turnout and kind of like audience chat. I think the Oscar month also generated quite a lot of buzz, didn't it? With Nomadland and Sound of Metal and The Father.
Yeah, those are quite well known. These were some movies that are a bit lesser known.
Yeah,
And
right,
that's
exactly.
what I like. If we can, that's it. If it's trying to introduce people, even if they don't come to the movie night itself,
Yeah,
if they hear that we talked about it quite positively,
yeah,
then maybe they can research the movie and be like, oh, this was cool that you showed this.
yeah.
I wouldn't have heard about it otherwise because people, everyone heard about, Judas and the Black Messiah,
Right.
Nomadland especially here. Like, obviously it was a good decision to show it. Whether you don't like it financially, it was a good decision to show it. But yeah, I think this month was good because we introduced people to different movies and especially filmmakers who are quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
So
For sure. I mean, like, the last movie that we'll talk about later on, 2006, Iranian movie. I mean, it's just like, I wonder how many people had even heard of that before we posted it. So definitely good to kind of, like allow movies like that to get some extra exposure. All right, so we had International Month this month, and I don't actually know why we did that. Was there any particular reason? We just felt like trying like foreign language movies.
let's see. It started because the movie Shu kept recommending to us finally became available.
Right.
And then we decided, it still is international.
It is. Yeah. I'm just trying to think, like, in terms of language, in terms of percentage, there's probably more English spoken than Urdu or Hindi, right?
Maybe, but I
Yeah.
think there's still a lot
Yeah.
of non-English. And then after Rise of Justice, it became like, why don't we
continue the trend?
Why don't we continue the trend?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm glad we did.
Me
So,
too. It was great. 5 foreign language movies in a month. I think that's quite a cool thing that we did there. So let's start by talking about these movies in the order which we showed them. So the first movie of the month was Summer of '85, also called Été 85. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Well, 85. Été 85 in
Ah.
French.
Okay, yes. So we chose this movie because a good friend of ours and a regular viewer, a regular guest, Shu, shout out to Shu, kept on going on about this. How long was she banging on about this movie for?
6 months, I think.
Yeah. I think she stopped coming, and then she was just like, I'm not coming until you show Summer of '85. So we were just like, fine, let's show it. I had a nightmare trying to get this movie with English and Chinese subtitles. In the end, somehow very luckily found a good enough quality version with hard-coded English and Chinese subtitles. Video quality wasn't really as good as what we usually show, but it worked out just fine. Yeah.
I think it actually aided the movie because it's that 80s feel.
True.
It gives that kind
True.
of vintage, kind of scratchy feel to
Yeah,
it, making
yeah.
that earthy, grounded appeal to it. So
Yeah.
I think visually it was fine.
Yeah.
Sound-wise it was fine. I'm just really happy we managed to finally show it.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's
me too.
also Francois Ozon. Again, apologies for butchering all these foreign names from over here. But yeah, I've never seen a film from him, actually.
Yeah.
So now I still need to check out more of his filmography, and really, really glad we showed this movie.
Sure. Well, so that we can better inform the the people listening. Can we get a quick synopsis of the film?
Yes, I've just got it now. So when Alexis capsizes off the coast of Normandy, David comes to the rescue and soon opens the younger boy's eyes to a new horizon of friendship, art, and sexual bliss. So very basically, it's kind of like a teenage romance. Kind of like a Wellwood romance, kind of like a summer romance movie.
Yeah.
You know, set in Normandy as well. So you get those beautiful shots of the coast. They're really sumptuously shot. And you get the feeling of the excitement and the trauma of a first love.
Right.
As well.
Yeah. Like a bit of a coming of age experience.
Yeah.
This movie, I think generally people had really positive things to say about it. I liked it a lot. I think that the okay, so I'm terrible with character names. Who was the guy that saved the other guy?
David. So David's the older one. He's a bit more cool, streetwise. He's got the motorcycle.
Yeah.
He's a lot more. He's charismatic and he's very sexually confident as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he played that role very well, like very convincing. You can. I mean, he's very charming, and you can see why the other character was so strongly attracted to him. What was the name of the other character, by the way? Sorry. Alexis. Yes. So it was very much kind of. I would say that David really had more of the power in that relationship.
Alexis was also, he's younger and he's a bit cuter as well. Like I remember the mother of David would call Alexis, "Oh, my little rabbit."
Right. Yeah.
So he's also infantilized and he's made into the more submissive part of the relationship.
Yeah.
Like he's clearly caught up a lot more in David's aura and energy. I think for David, it's more of like, oh, Alexis. I think he does have feeling for him, and maybe he's scared to confront those feelings, but he treats Alexis as a little bit like a plaything.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the movie, you do feel a bit sorry for Alexis. I mean, so just to backtrack a little bit, it starts with Alexis's boat capsizing. David kind of comes to the rescue. They kind of quite quickly form this this sort of like relationship. They have a fleeting romance, and then kind of all of a sudden, David kind of does a bit of a U-turn and is just like, well, actually, I don't like you that much. I am banging that girl, and I'm not interested. And then, don't want to give away too many spoilers. A bit of a tragic ending as well. Anything that was particularly memorable for you about this film?
Oh yeah, I think Damon said this as well earlier, but the scenes of them like on David's motorcycle,
So yeah, it's
very
quite
exhilarating,
yeah,
and because David seems to have like this, or Alexis, sorry, has this kind of fascination with death. Even there's this kind of teenage kind of a, like interest of death as well. So the fact that they go on the motorbike and this idea of catching speed or becoming faster than speed. But
David was. I think you mean David has this kind of fascination with death, right? Because he was
Yeah.
talking about like always chasing something which is never quite within reach. I don't know if Alexis kind of had that same obsession.
I think he did because he liked ancient Egypt.
Okay.
But he liked mummies and things like that.
Okay.
The other scene I thought was, this is a fantastic use of music actually. Arguably the best use of music throughout this month was, so twice in a nightclub, they use Rod Stewart's Sailing,
Okay.
which is a fantastic song, and they use it magnificently, and you get goosebumps and you get really absorbed into the romance and in that energy and like the pulsating atmosphere that they're in. You're really caught up. It's a wonderful scene, and the way that like the scene slows down and the camera kind of zooms in on like the young lover's face. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And they play that song again in another scene, which again still quite moving, but I don't want to say because it's a spoiler.
Right. Yeah. I think again, without giving away too many spoilers, we know that dancing plays a fairly important part towards the end of the film, and it's the second movie where dancing has been quite significant in a film, especially at the end. So yeah, generally I really liked the film because I thought it was just just a really sweet love story. We know it's a bit tragic, but all the best love stories, all the most memorable ones. They are tragic. All right, so let's move on to the next movie then, which I guess we can get opinions from both of you.
Sorry, may I say something?
Please.
Since I'm French, I can just mention this movie, that the director, because Arman, you are just looking for more movies about him. The most famous one he did are The Swimming Pool and 8 Women, both released early 2000s. So that's the one that I would recommend if you like that particular movie from him.
Thank you.
I think those were the ones also mentioned in the group as well.
Oh, really?
I think Damon mentioned 8 Women as well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Always good to have your knowledge on hand. Yeah.
I'm French, so
Yeah.
it turns out to be alright.
Yeah. So the next movie that we decided to show, based on, is it the 2009 Man Booker Prize winner?
2008.
2008
Yeah, close enough.
Man Booker Prize, which I read many years ago. The White Tiger. I think the author's name is something like Aravind Adiga. I can't remember exactly. But we both watched this already, and we thought it would be a pretty good one for movie night. Could you give us a quick synopsis?
Yes, sure. So, Balram Halwai narrates his epic and darkly humorous rise from poor villager to successful entrepreneur in modern India. I think I'll just leave it as that.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about the movie is the narrative framework is Balram writing from the present in an email to the Chinese premier. So I think the movie takes place in the early 2000s. So not the current Chinese premier, his predecessor. And he's writing to him about his life story,
Right.
and his rags to riches story, and kind of, this idea of his admiration for the Chinese premier and his entrepreneurship as well.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember if it was the same in the novel, but I'll have to go back and check. I'm really happy that we showed this film. We've shown all different types of films from different countries, different backgrounds, but this is the first time that we've shown an Indian/English language film. I don't want people to think that this is some kind of Bollywood, but it did I think an excellent job of showing that India is a country of, well, two extremes, should we say. There is extreme wealth, at the same time there's also extreme poverty. All right, so let's move on to you guys, and can we get some general thoughts, opinions? Ben, did you join us for this one?
Yes, that was my first movie night.
Cool.
Uh-huh.
All right, yeah.
But that was a long time ago. So the memory is kind of fading.
That's okay. That's all right.
But I definitely remember the ending.
Okay.
It was really dark.
Mm.
And also, at the time, I felt it was kind of rushed.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think they had to, get to the end. It's only 2 hours long. So I
Is
get this feeling
it
from
2
that
hours long?
movie.
Okay.
Yeah, it turned out okay, but it's just a kind of feeling.
Well, I feel like the whole movie was kind of a build up to that kind of dramatic event that happened. Maybe it could have happened sooner, and we could have seen the effects of that a little bit more. And how about you, Matt? What are your thoughts on this film generally?
So first of all, I didn't hear about the book previously.
Oh, okay.
I just watched the trailer,
Cool.
and I was like, this looks like Parasite, but in India.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, let me check the reviews really quickly. And on IMDb, the first reviewer said, this is like Parasite, but in India. And I checked the movie by myself, and I'm like, yeah, that's like Parasite, but in India. So
Is there any chance that you were the reviewer that wrote that? No, I'm kidding.
no, but it's the fact that it's for me it was kind of predictable, in the sense that it is from rags to riches, like Arman said. It's a very typical story of someone who goes from poverty and through a life of crime becomes more rich than previously, obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't find anything special about the movie except that it was from India. Like,
Right.
I have seen Indian movies before, some Bollywood style, some not.
Yeah.
I have to say to the viewers, the listeners for the podcast, that this is not Bollywood at all. There is no singing. It's pretty gritty. It's pretty down to earth and realistic movie. It could have been in any other language as well.
Yeah.
The one thing I liked about it, there are two things. First of all, the performance of the main actor is pretty good. Very likable guy. And they talk a lot about the caste system in India,
Yeah.
which is something very cultural.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was more like the social commentary of rich people are assholes, should take over.
Right.
So I have seen that in Parasite, I have seen that in Joker, and the very last line of the movie, sorry about the spoiler,
okay. It's all right.
but he turns to the camera and he says, "Kill your master," and then fade to black, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Without Joker, without Parasite, this movie would not have been made.
Well, I mean, well, at the same time, it was written as a novel before any of those movies came out.
This
you know?
I completely agree with, but you
Yeah.
have to understand that the novel was made for an audience, which the movie is not.
Right.
Like the movie is made for the audience of today, in the political climate of today, and the gender equalities and social inequalities of today.
Right. Yeah.
And that movie was half Hindi, half English.
Right.
They criticized the American system a lot. They praised the Chinese system a lot, actually. So you could see
Yeah,
where
they
it
did,
was
didn't they?
going.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually writing to the Chinese Prime Minister who's coming to India, right?
Right.
So he's telling his life story to impress the Chinese.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like I said, I still don't know if that was actually part of the novel. I wonder if they kind of added that in, just for for the
Yeah.
sake of the film.
Exactly.
But,
For the sake of contemporary.
Yeah. I'll look into that. Yeah. Aman, what are your general thoughts on My Tiger?
I liked it. I thought it was actually quite good. I get the Parasite comparisons, but I think this movie started production before Parasite, and if you start around the same time, there is a thing in art where sometimes you make a similar movie at the same time, unwillingly. So I think it's pretty unfair to say, oh, without Parasite, this movie wouldn't have been made, considering Priyanka Chopra Jonas's role as a producer in the movie, and the other lead Indian actor, not the lead, the man who plays her husband. He's quite a big star in India as well. So I think
is
it
he?
would have,
Yeah.
I think it would have been made anyway. I think what's interesting is kind of, because I don't think exactly "Kill Your Masters" is the very last line. It's very much like a,
It is.
well, not okay, never mind.
He turns to the camera and he says that and fade to black pretty much.
Okay, never mind. I lost my train of thought now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway, yeah, so at the end, it's kind of like this idea of creating like a new master, so like the idea of new money. And I think that's quite interesting with India, the idea of there is a case system and old money and empire and imperial powers and people who've succeeded from that within Indian society. But he presents himself as, oh, I'm new money. So
Right.
yeah, I've kind of got to where I am with nefarious, well, not even nefarious means, like I think it's pretty justified what he does in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, it's murder, but spoiler.
Well,
But I think the idea is that he's turned himself to a better version of what others have been before him. And I think that's something which, we don't really see in Parasite, because that's a lot more poor versus rich. This is
Yeah.
more like, how can we change Indian society as well?
Well, because I think at the end, he's kind of it's like a story of many things, including his kind of journey of entrepreneurship. And in the end, he says something like, "Well, what I've done with my company is that it's all kind of legal. It's all above board. All of my drivers have insurance. If things like this happen, then it's dealt with in the correct way." And I think what's interesting is that a good couple of years ago, there's quite a big Indian Bollywood actor called Salman Khan, who I believe was involved in a kind of hit and run accident. And I think that the person that he hit ended up dying. I don't know exactly how harsh his punishment was, or how much money he had to pay, or whether he went to jail, or whether he was just under house arrest, but he was and still is quite rich and quite powerful. And I don't think he really suffered the same consequences as someone, just as like your average Joe would. So I kind of get what you're saying about the kind of this new style of being a capitalist and being an entrepreneur, but kind of trying to do things with less corruption, I suppose. Yeah. But this film, I find it really fascinating because if you look at the lifestyle of these drivers, his dream, that Balram's dream, was to become a driver, just for a rich person, and it's amazing that for him, that was basically like that was the highest point. That is what he aimed to achieve as his life goal.
But this is the caste system in India. You can't break the glass ceiling if you're born in a lower caste.
Exactly.
So it's very culturally based.
Yeah, and I believe that his caste is something. He comes from the Halwai, which I believe is the sweet makers or something like that. I'm not entirely sure about the caste system because the caste system belongs more to Hinduism, as far as I'm aware, or is it Islam? I think it's more.
Hindu.
I think it's Hinduism because, well, interesting point in the film. He actually another way that he uses kind of his intelligence and his deception to become the #1 driver is to basically out the #1 driver as a
and
Muslim.
he's a Muslim. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So again, like a very interesting story showing this person who I think started out as quite simple-minded, quite innocent, just wants to become a driver, kind of going through a few things and noticing a few things, and being the one in a million who basically does something to make a positive change in his life.
Yeah, this is something that they mention a few times in the movie. You're either in English it's a chicken in the coop,
Yes.
or you're the white tiger. You're either stuck forever in your life, used as a mean,
Yeah.
or you become more powerful and you're like one in a million, literally.
Yeah, I think the reality of that lifestyle of basically being slapped, being kicked, being spoken to like a piece of crap, and living in the basement area, in like disgusting conditions. I mean, that must be reality for millions of people, And I wonder in real life how many of them actually manage to escape that. I don't think many at all.
I have been to India and I have
too.
seen the different caste systems throughout the country, but it would have been interesting to have an actual Indian viewer describe whether or not the movie shows reality or not.
Yeah.
That's something I want to know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm British Indian, so I'm born and raised in London, England. So I couldn't really tell you too much about the reality of India. And the one time I did visit was only for like a month or so, which is not nearly enough to explore and discover India. But like obviously, the way that you see kind of the poverty, the streets, the people, the chaotic traffic. Basically just like just shouting at somebody from your window, "Hey motherfucker, get out of my way," things like that. Like I think it's it's not too far from reality.
No, I'm pretty sure it's close. I mean, they do it in China anyway, so.
Yeah. I think less of the shouting here, maybe more
honking.
beeping. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's like I think in those cities, maybe like like Delhi or Mumbai or something, it's probably this almost organized chaos. You know what I mean? It looks like a complete clusterfuck, but if you're part of that, you kind of understand how it works. Yeah.
Most South Asian countries are like this.
Yeah.
And the North as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
I've been to Vietnam, Cambodia, Nepal, India. They're very similar in terms of traffic conditions.
Yeah. But anyway, this I really enjoyed watching this film here on the big screen. It's anyway, Ben, is there anything more you wanted to say about this?
One thing. There was singing in this movie.
There was what, sorry?
There was singing. They sang one song.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. When Balram and that guy formed a band, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But there was no crowd mingling with them, right?
There was no crowd. No,
Okay.
No. Actually, we didn't talk much about the other actors in the film, but was the girl Priyanka Chopra, right? Her name in the film is Pinky?
Yeah, Pinky, yeah.
Okay, so we know that Priyanka Chopra is, I guess, primarily a Bollywood actress, and then I think she moved over to kind of like Western movies, like sort of Western mainstream movies. I don't think she's an amazing actress, but I think she's good enough, and I think she was quite well suited to the role. I don't know anything about her husband in the film?
No, I don't know. All I know is from the research that he's becoming a bit more well-known in India as an actor as well.
Do you think that's because of his role in this movie, or do you think he got the role in this movie because he was an up-and-coming actor?
I think maybe previously there's some of these productions, let's say it's Netflix or Western, where they'll probably hire local actors or well-known local actors in supporting roles. So
Right.
I think that's the case with him.
Okay.
But yeah, well, like Matt said, the lead actor, his name is Adra Gurav. He
Okay.
was nominated for a BAFTA as well for his lead performance.
Right. Yeah.
I think he's fantastic in the film.
I can't wait to see him in other films.
Yeah, really charismatic, and he displays quite a wide range of emotions. So you buy into him as like the genuinely kind of sweet, kind of, this one. He's a sweet maker, and he is what he is.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm a sweet maker, and I'm sweet as well. And then you really get into it as he becomes a bit more gritty and darker. And that. So kind of from like the sheep to the wolf. kind of thing. It reminded me a little bit of Riz Ahmed in The Night Of, the HBO series.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Riz Ahmed kind of starts like as a bit like, wide-eyed and innocent, and all of a sudden becomes really ground down and gritty.
I was about to say it reminds me of Riz Ahmed in Nightcrawler. So very similar.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, but Riz Ahmed,
It's an actor, though.
he doesn't really come out on top in
No.
Nightcrawler.
I mean, it's just like, I guess he's brown in Nightcrawler. It's just
But in terms of obviously he's a very different person in the beginning of the movie and in the end, and I think one of the main turning points is after the incident with the car, and he comes into the apartment. No, I think they're in a hotel or they're in their kind of mansion or something, and the guy's brother, who's almost always being an asshole to him, was for some reason being completely different. Balram, our brother, please come on. Sit down. Balram, come on, you don't know. And it's just, you just know something's up. And then when they ask him to sign the contract, I think the look in his eye, that moment is maybe one of the main turning points of when you realize, and he realizes, that things have to change.
Yeah, he's feeling betrayed.
Yeah. I mean, no matter how much kind of shit that he took before that, I think he sort of just took it, and then that was probably, I think, the turning point. Yeah. Anyway, great movie. I'd be happy to continue discussing it, but got another 3 to discuss. So let's move on to the third movie of the month, which was Riders of Justice. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep, starring a CDFS favorite, Mads Mikkelsen. Could we get a quick synopsis of this film?
Sure. I'll preface this by saying I think the marketing for this movie by the international distributor and by us kind of undersells the movie as well.
It's not an accurate
It's
reflection.
not accurate at all
No.
from what you think the movie will be. So, but this is a synopsis they give.
Yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen, is forced to return home to take care for his teenage daughter after his wife is killed in a tragic train accident. However, when a survivor of the wrecked train surfaces claiming foul play, Marcus begins to suspect his wife was murdered and embarks on a revenge-fueled mission to find those responsible. I would further add that the movie is more of an exploration of seeking revengeance and the effect that has on the soul and on humans psychologically, and about people coming to terms with grief and how to process those emotions.
Yeah.
And the idea of coincidences and fate as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think one of the reasons why we didn't have a massive turnout for this one is because a lot of people thought, it's just another nobody, like the Bob Odenkirk movie that we showed a few months back, and I kind of don't blame them. But yeah, in reality, the movie is really very different. Matt, I know that you've got quite a bit to say about this one, I think. Why don't you start us off and let us know your thoughts on this?
Okay, this is the one that I actually was looking forward to discuss. As you can see, sorry guys at home, you can't see that, but usually when I watch a movie, I take some notes. I have half a page for White Tiger, half a page for another one, and this one I have 2 full pages of notes, which I took while watching the movie. So this is literally how inspired I was.
A true film fan, I think.
It's the best movie I've seen this year, and it was completely unknown to me. I would not have heard of it without Chengdu Film Society, which I'm really grateful for, first of all.
Thank you.
I completely agree with Aman. This movie has extremely poor marketing. Even the trailer doesn't show much. The poster is Matt Mikkelsen with an AK-47 looking badass with a beard, and you think it's going to be like Nobody, which if you have listened to me in the last podcast, I hated it. And it's not even like a John Wick movie where it's like a B revenge movie with just good action and cardboard cutout characters. It's really a deconstruction of the genre made by extremely talented people, whether it's behind the camera or in front of it. The casting is excellent. I do not know any names except Matt Mikkelsen. But I know that he has made 5 movies with the same director, which I don't know the name either. I'm sorry about that. But if you're interested about European movies, Danish especially, you should check that guy out. He's really good. And first of all, what I liked about it is that you do not know what to expect while going to see this movie. It will take you by surprise every time. Riders of Justice is an awful name for that movie because it shows you that you think you're going to see something very bland, very action-oriented. Riders of Justice is the name of a bikers gang in the movie that just creates a lot of events and put them together. But in fact, it doesn't even matter because they're barely in the movie.
Right.
So the title itself, translated from the Danish, so it's not a mistranslation, is by itself misleading.
But why do you think they chose that as the title of the movie?
Because
I agree with you that there's like the Riders of Justice, quote unquote, are actually not a big part of the movie.
Because technically, this is what the main characters believe themselves to be. They are going to avenge that woman who died in the train, and they think that, they probably think that it has been a terrorist attack and no one's going to do anything. So they are the Riders of Justice because they believe that.
Right. Yeah.
But things turn out to be different. And this is one of the movies I don't want to spoil for you, so I'm trying to be as vague as possible. But I want to say that this is the movie that made me think the most and took me by surprise every time. First of all, every character is much more three-dimensional than you expect. There are some actions they're going to do in the movie that you don't see coming because you think, that's really dumb. Why would they do that? But in the end, you get, oh, okay, that makes sense because psychologically this happened to them before.
Right.
And it's at the same time a really dark thriller, a very good exploration of human psychology, and it's really hilarious if you like dark humor.
Yes.
Offbeat and very absurd, which is what this director is famous for. The first movie he made with Matt Mikkelsen is called Adam's Apple, 2006, I think, 2006.
Sorry, no, 2 movies before that.
Before that?
Yes.
Is it The Green Butchers?
Flickering Lights 2000, Green Butchers 2003, Adam's Apples 2005, Men and Chicken 2015.
All right. So they have a long career together, which means they are good friends and they work really well together. But this director, who is also the writer, I think, has a very strange sense of humor. And you need to accept that going into the movie.
Right.
Because this is part of how funny it is. The characters are extremely likable, but you will only like them if you put yourself in their mind and understand that it doesn't always make sense the first time you see them.
Well, speaking of the humor in the movie, do you think that some of it might have been lost in translation? Because there were times where things were happening in the film and I was kind of laughing to myself, but there wasn't that kind of collective laughter that you get with like, should we say, funny movies. So I was wondering, like, am I just a really dark person for laughing at this, or is there a translation problem here? Because I don't think a lot of people on the night actually got the jokes.
So first of all, I have to say I have a very peculiar sense of humor. It's not always easy for me to laugh at broad comedy,
Right?
and I haven't had the chance to see it with you guys. I saw it at home, so I know only that I laughed a lot.
Okay.
Why did I laugh? It's because Yeah, one thing I really like in movies is when really smart characters insult each other about their own abilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
this is great. Like
Yeah.
you take two guys who are the best of what they're doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they complain about each other not doing the right things.
Yeah.
This is great because they have everything to back it off.
Okay.
It's not like
yeah.
dumb characters like Steve Carell, for instance,
yeah.
playing a dumb character in a movie called Dinner for Schmucks.
Yeah.
You know, they are actually elevating their personality. The dialogue is really well written, and even if you just follow the subtitles,
Yeah.
which means the translation, it is really funny.
Yeah.
I
no,
think so.
I agree. Yeah. All right. We can come back to you if you've got
Sure.
more to say later.
Sure. I have.
Matt, Ben, anything else? Anything you'd like to tell us about this film?
Yeah, I like the dark humor in it.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of an earlier one. In Bruges.
Exactly.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Rouge.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fantastic. But I don't think these kind of movies are quite popular here. You know,
Yeah.
Do you
Chinese
mean
people
here in China?
in China. You know, I think they probably would prefer some Marvel stuff. No disrespect.
Yeah. No.
They're entertaining, for sure. But you know, for this kind of darker things, probably it's not that popular.
Well, this is a bit of a generalization, but you know, from my own knowledge, I find that a lot of local Chinese people, their idea of like something funny is more like what we call slapstick humor. You know, person walks down the street, person falls over, it's so funny. You know, but then when it comes to, like you said, like dark humor or this kind of really kind of like humor in a very intelligent way. Maybe it kind of goes over a few people's heads.
Now, this is something very interesting because we do not understand Danish. I'm talking about
Right.
myself at least.
Yeah.
But I understand English really well. And the subtitles were pretty close to, I think, what the characters were talking about.
Sure.
I do not know if it was the same for the Chinese.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because
yeah.
if the translation doesn't work in Chinese, then the humor is lost. A lot of it.
Yeah.
I have no idea because I watched it with English.
Okay, that's good.
fair enough.
That's good. Yeah.
But this is maybe why you didn't get a lot of laughs in the night.
Possibly, yeah. That's a good point. I think sometimes it's just this is why some films that are kind of primarily kind of comedy films, they might not come over to the cinemas here because a lot of it just gets lost in translation. Whereas something like Fast and Furious 9 with probably very simple dialogue, you know, that's not difficult to translate. It's going to be perfectly understandable.
May I say something about this because this is very interesting for international audience.
Yes.
One of my favorite movie is a French comedy from 2002 called Astérix Mission Cléopâtre, for those who knows. It is absurd humor at its finest. And every sentence there is a play on words. If you don't understand French, you will not get anything.
Right.
And this movie was a hit in France. Even 20 years later, people still quote it daily. But the producers didn't make any dime internationally. So they said, for the sequel, you have to make the humor as understandable as possible. So we're going to bring international stars as extras and do not make any jokes that only French people can understand because we want it to be famous in the US and in China as well.
Right.
The movie, 20 years later, is still one of the most disappointing things that most French people would say they have seen in their life.
Right.
Because the humor is so flat, there is no personality at all. Is it the fault of the screenwriters, the filmmakers, the actors? No, they did as much as they could, but you can't have a joke that translates in every language work.
Right.
You have to be extremely flat, basic slapsticks.
Yeah.
Slapsticks work because it doesn't need translation. Why is Chaplin so famous in China? Why is Mr. Bean so famous in China? Because they are silent movies.
Universal humor, isn't
Exactly.
it? You know what I mean? Doesn't need any language. Aman, I feel like we should come to you now to talk about this. So, I don't know. Did you say much about this? Would you like to tell us anything that you sort of particularly liked about it, or just general thoughts?
Yeah, I think Ben and Matt have been like said a lot of what I think. Actually, I thought it was a great movie. It weirdly, for me, besides Offside, which is a personal favorite, I think this movie weirdly continues a trend of like a lot of the ones that we show at CDFS that we like or we thought were quite great, having a lower turnout.
Yeah.
Which I find quite funny. Maybe that's due to marketing or how the movie's promoting itself or whatever. I think, like what Matt said, it's such a surprising movie going into it. Because to be honest, I did think, oh, okay, we could see Mads Mikkelsen being badass.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, for me, as for a primal reason, I wouldn't have minded if it was just that.
Right.
Because I quite love Mads Mikkelsen. But it's really fascinating. And I think it's a movie where definitely a lot of men should see it. Because it explores how I think men specifically grapple and deal with these emotions. And the idea of being open. Maybe you can say it's a bit cliche, especially in these modern times.
Yeah.
But I think it does subtly, without mentioning it, maybe talks about toxic masculinity or more positive masculinity better than some other films have. So I know Promising Young Woman wasn't very popular with some of the male viewers, and that's approach to toxic masculinity. But I think this one deconstructs it better.
Right.
And
Much
in
better.
a much more subtle way.
Yeah.
No one's saying, oh, you're doing this, like, oh, you're such a bad man. It's more like his daughter saying, oh, but it's good to have therapy. You know, we can open up. And when he finally accepts it, it's quite beautiful and moving. There's one scene in particular I don't want to mention where Mads' character has a revelation. There's a shocking thing that comes to light, and he loses it. And that's... often when we talk about acting, I think people mention how a line is delivered. How someone looks a bit charismatic or cocky. People don't mention physical acting so much.
Right.
And that's really devastating, beautiful physical acting that he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to mention Nightcrawler, but the mirror thing.
That really shocked me.
Yeah.
You know, he banged his head against the mirror.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, in that moment, that whole thing was great. He did great. And he showed his vulnerability. You know, throughout the entire film, he was like macho man, right? Killing people with cold blood. But in that moment, he was completely vulnerable. And I think that's something I can actually relate. You know, you don't want to show that side to other people.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yeah. I think, you know, like there are a few people in the past who said, oh, you guys show too many boy movies, you know what I mean? And for those who didn't come to this film, maybe that's the reason why. They're just like, oh, another macho movie with a guy holding a machine gun who's obviously like, oh, he's going to go on some kind of killing spree
But that's the
to
poster.
avenge his... Yeah, exactly.
That's
I
why
know,
the
again,
poster is so misleading.
Yeah, again, like sort of, kind of misleading kind of like poster and marketing synopsis and stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the supporting cast, who I think were almost, you know, just as strong as Mads Mikkelsen
The computer guy.
in this movie. Yeah, the computer
the
guy.
fat
God,
guy,
he's just he's so unusual and he's so bonkers. But in the same way, just like the other two pair who we kind of are introduced to earlier in the film, they're just as bonkers as well. And what I think is quite cute is just that the way they almost form this weird, unstable family. You know what I mean?
This is the theme of the movie.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, you've got this guy, you know, teaching the daughter how to play chess. You know what I mean? You've got this guy kind of like, turns out to be like, I don't want to say an expert kind of like you know, shooter or anything, but like all these little things that take you by surprise. And again, you know, without giving away too much, the sort of final sort of scene of the movie is just like, oh, this is quite nice and cute, like quite bizarre.
Yeah.
But this, you know, the way that they were kind of all brought together, such an unusual crowd, you know, kind of forming this almost family unit.
It's that beautiful thing. It's of, you know, where they might be seen as like broken pieces, but when you stick them together,
Yeah,
they make something like beautiful.
yeah,
And that's what it is. It's the idea of like, oh, they all have their own trauma or they're broken inside. And it's not like minute little things. Each one has something quite devastating. It feels
Sure,
like
yes.
that's really
yeah,
that's brought them up to that point. And also quite different things, not necessarily a family member has died, maybe something that's happened to them
yeah,
in their childhood or some other form of
yeah.
accident. So it's really like, you know, maybe we are broken, but we can come together, and then as a whole, we're fixed. And that last scene as well, there's a sort of little musical note to it as well.
Yeah.
That's a good emotional catharsis.
Yeah.
A good crescendo for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on,
I have one
please.
question.
Yeah.
In the last thing, they were celebrating Christmas, right? And why do you guys always have to wear ugly sweatshirts?
That's
just part of it. I think it's just, because Christmas it can be a bit cheesy.
It's one of those kind of like, I guess, unexplained traditions where it's just something you do or just something you wear, and because it's been normal for so long, it becomes part of what it should be every year.
And
but I think
probably
it's
from Prince Albert. I mean, that's where a lot of our Christmas traditions come from.
Yeah,
it's Queen Victoria's
yeah.
husband, so the Germans, I guess.
yeah.
But do they have to be like ugly?
I think it's just funny. The idea of like
Yeah.
having an ugly
Okay.
Christmas jumper is kind of a bit funny. Like everyone looks a bit silly, and you can be a bit cheesy and cringy. That's why I think that's why it being at Christmas time and having that scene the way it was works. Because especially for I think some Western audiences in England anyway, a lot of Christmas specials you allow them to be a bit more sentimental because it's Christmas. So at Christmas you kind of your emotional guard drops and you're a bit more open, which is what happens in the movie, and you can be a bit more sentimental.
I'd link it also to a sense of comfort. You know what I mean? In the end, they're all somewhat comfortable with each other.
And the girl got what she wished.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, Matt. Before we move on, anything else you'd like to add about the film?
Yeah, a few things if you don't mind. I will try to be
Please
as
go ahead.
quick as possible.
Well, it's okay. Take your time, man.
The thing I want to talk about this movie is how it handles violence. Because if you go to see a Nobody or John Wick, you expect the violence to be fun and pleasant. And this movie is very interesting because at one point they come to see a guy, the guy points the gun at Matt Mikkelsen's head. Matt Mikkelsen just breaks his neck and leaves. And he comes back and he says, "I'm sorry, I should not have done that." This is really funny. It's very dark.
Yeah.
And you think that it's going to be like this a few times during the movie. Like, there is a boy who dates this girl, he punches him in the face, he comes back, "I'm sorry, I should not have done that." And you think it's going to be like this most of the time. But then, one of the guys, he tries to become his friend with the disheveled hair, he says something in the back of the car, and Matt Mikkelsen says, "If you keep talking, I'm going to punch you in the face." And it's like, this is very body movie stuff. But then he actually punches him in the face, opens the car door and leaves him in the street and drives away.
Yeah.
And you're like, that guy doesn't take shit.
Yeah.
The violence is as devastating sometimes as it is funny. When they are getting a shootout in the street, no spoiler because there is going to be shootouts in a movie like this, you think that the bad guys are going to outnumber them and is going to find a way to kill them using stealth, using skills, like John Wick again.
Yeah.
But he is just an army veteran. He's trained to kill. He doesn't show any emotion. Terminator style, takes the gun, shoot them, point blank range, execution style. You do not laugh. You do not cheer. You're like, fuck, that's rough. You feel for the bad guys, where the bad guys actually start shooting first. So it's really interesting because he's supposed to be the main character, the one you relate the most. He's on the poster of the movie. But he's the one who is the most deranged, in a way.
And the most distant as well.
Yes, very emotionally distant. But it's because he's hiding his own fear of losing that person he loves. So this is very interesting. This movie, if you want to see more like this, do not watch John Wick and Unforgiven and all this stuff. I would recommend Unforgiven. Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood. In this movie, there is a line that says, "It's not easy to kill a man." And in Unforgiven, there is a very similar line, which has haunted me for a long time, because the movie is still like 1992. This is one of the first Western movies that, again, deconstructed the genre and showed violence for what it actually does to people. So if you guys want to know more movies like Riders of Justice, Unforgiven is fucking good.
It's maybe one of the easily one of the best. Like,
It's
in my top 20.
Postmodern Western. But then more recently there is Logan. And
Another
Logan
one that I love.
was
Love.
inspired by Shane from 1966.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these movies are the same. They arrive at one point where they want to show that violence has real effect. Logan is a superhero, that's Wolverine.
Yeah.
But what happens when Wolverines actually tear people apart with real claws? That's what happened in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's psychologically scarring to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's at the same time really funny and very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like how it's supposed to be in real life. It's
Yeah.
shocking in both ways, good
Yeah.
and bad.
Thing is about Logan. Sorry, I know it's not one of the movies we watched, but I'm a huge fan of that film. And the thing is, that could be a standalone film that doesn't belong to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With the story of basically, a man trying to just sort of like protect his father figure. Then he finds out that there's other people involved. It doesn't
It doesn't belong to the
feel
Marvel
like
universe
yeah.
at all.
Well, I mean, it technically belongs to the what is it like the
X-Men.
Fox the Fox sort of Marvel.
Oh,
movies?
and in terms of the idea
Exactly
behind
yeah.
it,
It is.
it
just,
is
yeah.
Western.
Yes.
The director, James Mangold,
Yes.
is famous for that Western style.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting how you mentioned like these films like Riders of Justice and Logan being like Western because how do you
Think about it,
define
Riders of Justice.
Yeah.
It is literally a Western, an urban Western.
But how? Yeah. It's but it's always been tricky for me to define what a Western movie is. Mysterious stranger turns up in a town, kind of like to save people, and then kind of I don't know, mysteriously leaves or something like that.
I think a Western has to do with the theme and the setting of the movie, more than the actual story sometimes.
Yeah.
This is why we call urban Western sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, listen. We'll move on to the next movie now because we talked a lot about that one.
But it deserves to be done.
Oh, for sure.
Check it out, guys.
Excellent movie. Yeah. All right. So the fourth movie of the month was our Japanese language film set in Uzbekistan.
Yes.
And this is called To the Ends of the Earth. Not the Benedict Cumberbatch movie, To the Ends of the Earth.
Yeah, apparently some people. Again, anyone listening, I make an article. Read the fucking thing.
We did have a guest turn up, and I think her and her friend left halfway through because they're like, oh, we thought this was the Benedict Cumberbatch To the Ends of the Earth.
He's not on the poster. All the questions people have, it's all on the
Yeah,
poster
it's
on the
just-
first couple lines.
Yeah.
Anything you want to know,
Yeah.
a review, it's
So,
there. A trailer, it's there.
At this point, guys, we would like to remind you that we release an article for every movie, which has all of the information that you could possibly need, really, and links to other information as well. But this is certainly not the Benedict Cumberbatch film. It is To the Ends of the Earth, Japanese language, set in Uzbekistan from 2020. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Okay. Could we get a quick synopsis?
Okay, so a young Japanese woman travels to Uzbekistan to shoot an episode of her travel variety show. In front of the camera, her persona is carefree and happy-go-lucky, whereas behind the scenes, she is cautious and introverted. Frustrated by the filming, she decides to go deeper into the mysterious Silk Road nation. On the streets of historical cities, she finds herself adrift and alone, confronting her deepest fears and hidden aspirations.
So this, I think, was quite a divisive one amongst our guests. We had certain guests like Joanna, who said that it was her favourite movie of the month.
Yeah, she spoke. Shout out to John. I think she spoke very eloquently in the chat as well,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
she'd be the best to tell you. her
She's
positive
a
feelings about the
she's a
movie.
great
Yeah.
speaker. We need to get her on the podcast so she can explain it, better than us.
Yeah.
And then we had other guests. I think Leonette said that it was her least favorite, and I think it's funny that she put it at number 5 and she put number 4 as the movie I didn't see. So she was just assuming that whatever that was,
That's
it
quite a
would have
damning
been
statement, yeah.
yeah, it would have been better
No.
than To the Ends of the Earth.
I would agree. So look, I liked it. It was, I think, maybe a little too long, and in places a little too slow.
Yeah.
A bit too
Yeah.
ponderous.
Yeah.
However, I still enjoyed it. I could relate to a lot of the themes, especially in the first half of the movie. But I would say it was my least favourite. So
Yeah.
So I take out I'll talk about Offside a lot more later. But
Yeah.
that's biased, so I won't include that in the list. But if I was to talk about Summer of '85 and Riders of Justice and The White Tiger, Sometimes I find myself on a different day or a different mood going for that particular one.
Yeah.
So I think those ones are kind of like in their own little class, and
Yeah.
To the End of the Earth is not that. I would say it's quite interesting that it's a state-sanctioned movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a joint effort between the Japanese and Uzbekistani
Cool.
government. And for most of it, you wouldn't know that at all.
Well, apart from that, I think you mentioned this as well. Someone mentioned this. That there's that one line in the movie where the police officers
Why don't we just
interviewing
talk to each other?
Yeah, something like if we don't communicate with each other, we're never going to be able to move forward, or something like that.
Yeah.
The things what I really liked about this film is that it kept me laughing the whole way through. You know, either through kind of like good moments of comedy acting, like when the lady had to eat the kind of like dry, uncooked noodles, or just kind of like, you know, moments where you feel kind of like pity for her, and it's just like when she's on the ride, for example,
Yeah,
you know, and
I
like
think-
the sacrifices she makes, like to get the shot that she needs. And it's funny later on they're like, so how much of that stuff can we use? Maybe a
2
minute, a
minutes.
minute and a half, or something like that.
Yeah, that's very true to those kinds of things, though. Like even my very, very little experience she did like a food thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in Chengdu,
Yeah.
when you do like these kind of food tasting things, you obviously have to put on like a, wow, I don't know anything.
Well, you've got to.
Like then even that you could have like 8 hours of filming, and
Yeah,
then it's like
yeah.
2 minutes of. Well, obviously, I'm a terrible actor. So
Well, that's how it is when it comes to video making. You
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
out all day and and shooting stuff all day, and you think, great, I've got so much good stuff, and then you get back to like the editing room. You look at your computer, and then you're like, oh wait,
No,
hold
no,
on,
no,
I
no,
actually
no.
for some reason can't use A, B, and C because of this, that, and the other. Anyway, I liked it because it kept me laughing sort of like throughout the movie, but also I think the film did a very good job of showing just how alienated a person can be, living or traveling or working in a foreign country. You know, and I think the film did that very well. And I think for some people here, we can relate to that maybe in the early stages of coming to live here in China, where you can't speak a word to anyone. Little things here and there seem a bit scary to you, you know?
Yeah, there was. I mean, the one review that I kind of leaned in with was that this is the movie that embodies culture shock and isolation, and I
Yeah.
think that captures that perfectly.
Yeah.
That feeling of just like, oh, well, I've got this guidebook, it doesn't help me. I've got this phrasebook, oh, it doesn't help me.
No,
Um,
no. I think, you know, when you're sort of like, I think, you know, when I was much younger, in my early 20s, traveling around, and I was sort of holding on to my Lonely Planet guidebook. You know, I was thinking, all right, this is going to help me kind of like with everything I need, and then it doesn't really, you know. Ben, did you watch this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was very vocal about how much I hated it.
Well, great. This is your chance to be even more vocal. Yeah, we love it when people diss a maximum of one CDFS movie.
Okay, I think I used some 3 words.
Okay.
It was full of arrogance
Okay.
and ignorance, and there's also a lot of cringes.
Okay, yeah, some cringeworthy moments for sure. Yeah, yeah.
So for the arrogant part, you mentioned the rice thing or noodle, whatever that is.
It was a rice dish or a noodle dish or something.
Yeah, I remember the woman. You know, after she made the shot, the woman actually had firewood, so she made the dish again, fully cooked.
Yes.
And she gave it to her, and she was like, and she looked really disgusted. You know, I think any person with some sort of decency, right, with being a polite person, you would accept that.
Right.
Or probably just turn around and throw it in the trash.
Didn't her film crew then kind of share it amongst each other?
The crew did, but
Yeah.
I think because the woman was a leading actor in this film, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that was, I think that was the first moment, and that really got to my nerves.
I think maybe for her, she probably thought, well, hey, the shot's over. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't need this anymore. Yeah.
Well, maybe she can act a little bit longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I
mean,
think the problem is within her whole life, I think her thing is she feels like she's constantly acting for the camera, and for her having to go, I've had it before. I think this is an interesting thing where I think if people have or have not been abroad, you might have tried something, but you have such a bad memory of it, you go, but I've tried it, why would I do it again? And I think for her, it's not really arrogance. I think, she had to perform on camera for it, whereas the guys don't have to perform on camera, and they get the luxury of actually having the good ones. So I think for her, it's more of a thing of like, you know, I just rather be by myself. I didn't enjoy that segment of the filming, and I like to hear more of what you said because I don't really see that as being arrogant. I mean, I've a lot of female friends or male friends, like they've been in that situation. You know, I don't think it's arrogance. It's just they had a bad experience with it, and I think it would be interesting. Because I think a lot of people think this until they go abroad to a place that really challenges them. They think, "Oh, I would never be like that."
Yeah.
Especially a lot of foreigners who come to China. I guarantee you, before they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this." Like I know a couple of friends who I can imagine them in that exact same scenario, being like, "Oh yeah, sorry, like that one wasn't a good one. Try this." Like I know someone who I think still hasn't tried dumplings because the first time she tried them, they were bad. And that's the thing, like, if you didn't enjoy it, it's like me, oh, well, I don't really like fish, why would I try it? Because I know what I like. So I think for her, yeah, maybe it's not great, but, you know, she's had I think her whole life, she feels like she's performing. And now it's like, I don't want to perform, I want to, you know, I don't want to try it, that's okay.
I haven't seen the movie,
Yeah.
but in the context of that scene, do we know she has tried that dish before, or was it her first time?
No, so what happens is that she goes to Chanaka, I think. I can't remember the Uzbek word. And they're filming her eating this thing, and they're like, oh, yeah, we need to get this shot, but she doesn't have enough firewood. So the lady cooks it, but it's not great. And she has to perform like, oh, exquisitely crunchy, like how she really enjoys it. And I think because she has to perform for the camera how much she loves it, she kind of has a natural reactionary thing against it. Like she's like, oh, when it's actually been made. Even though that's the thing, I think it's fair. She's a flawed character. Like this woman has gone out of her way to make it again, and obviously now it's delicious and proper. But I think for her, because she's had to perform on camera and she's tried it, she's like, well, yeah, I've tried it. Thanks. Like she doesn't seem very happy in the moment. So that's how I saw it. Anyway, Ben, I interrupt you. I want to hear more about why you didn't like the movie.
I don't think she did any research before she went to this country. I mean, you're traveling to another country, right? I think there's some kind of preparation you need to do. At the very least, learn to speak the word for the currency, right?
Yeah.
There was a scene in which she went to buy some grocery.
Yeah.
And she looked all terrified, like the shop owner's gonna rob her or something.
Yeah, no, so this is one of my complaints actually as well. If I would have to accuse her of anything, it's being, well, firstly, a bit stupid, and secondly, like, unnecessarily scared of everything and everyone around her. It's just like, yes, like, we understand that you're in this foreign country, but it's just like, you're dramatically running away from these security guards. I mean, put two and two together, you obviously film something that you're not supposed to film. And then there's this chase scene where she's hiding in the tunnel. But then it was hilarious when she kind of jumped in the water, like under the bridge, and then the security kind of guy just sort of like came and found her. So yeah, I kind of just like, it's just at times I was kind of like, listen, just grow a brain and grow some confidence. But you know, at the same time, it's difficult. Like when you're in a new country, even the smallest things can throw you off and make you feel uncomfortable.
A very safe society as well.
I had
Exactly,
a similar
yeah,
experience
yeah.
in Thailand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got lost. I was using my phone as GPS, but sometimes you cannot trust Google Maps. I was searching for this nightclub.
Of course you are.
Yeah, and it gave me this direction, and I had to go through this also dark alleys. It was, they were really dark.
Okay.
So I was of course a bit scared. You know, but I didn't like, run around like some headless fly. Is that the expression? In English?
Kind of headless chicken. Yeah.
Oh, okay, in Chinese it's headless fly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, so I can sort of relate, but I think she was kind of overreacting to the situation.
Yeah, I think at certain times it was a little bit too dramatic. Yeah, I think if they'd focused on the things like, you know, her at the restaurant, her at the theme park with the ride, which I thought was done really well and quite hilarious.
Don't stop forcing that child to do this.
That was so funny. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you shouldn't force that child to. Again, it's that thing about kind of culture difference, culture shock. You know, maybe, you know, women from that part of the world, I think it's true that they just do look younger than their age in most cases.
Yeah, there is a thing as well where not now, but back in the past, my parents would travel in Japan. They would say that some Japanese people, or within it's very insular. Like you look into it's an island, so you don't know much about the rest of the world. And Uzbekistan, especially being like a Muslim majority country, you do get that kind of reputation.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so I think that's why she is scared. Obviously, she's a bit too afraid.
Yeah,
But I think so. I would say with the research, I think she does have like a little guidebook that she has that she carries.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very different in certain countries. Like you said, Thailand. Thailand is a lot more tourist friendly than Uzbekistan. I think.
Sure.
A lot more like
Yeah.
you could probably speak English and Chinese, and a street vendor would talk back to you
Yeah.
in Thailand. But Uzbekistan,
The Thailand people speak better Chinese than I do.
well, that's what I
Yeah,
mean. So
yeah.
she's Japanese, so it's less of a global language than Chinese or English.
Yeah.
So and she tries speaking English sometimes because for her that's like a default lingua franca.
Yeah.
But
And there's
I think it's just I've had similar experience even in China sometimes where you're having a bad day and you think, oh, I've studied this, I know the phrase, and maybe it's a certain dialect and you go, what the hell do you want? Even though you want to pay with simple money. And I think it is fair. Sometimes I think on her half maybe she should have studied more. The thing I would say is I think this subverts a lot of things about travel documentaries or this current trend of lots of, oh yeah, let's travel to this really weird and different place. Because in a lesser movie, she would have gone and she would have, oh, I can't do this. And then she falls in love with the Uzbek guide and then she learns some language.
Eat, pray, love.
You know, exactly. I think I said eat, pray, love in the chat. Yes, perfect. Eat,
Yeah.
pray, love. Thank you. That's the thing I'm thinking about. It's not eat, pray, love. You know, she's not gone to Bali, but I think she's still confronted herself and challenged herself in a far more authentic way. But I think it is fair to say your criticism of, you know, like she's really that ignorant. You're a host of a travel reality show. Maybe it's just your job, but like you really don't know anything. And I think that's totally fair. And for me, I think I sympathize because I know people in her position.
Yeah.
But in the real world, I do get very annoyed when it's just like, what do you mean you don't know? Like this street vendor said to you, like, oh, wu kuai. Like, what do you mean you don't know the Chinese word for 5? You've been here for 3 years. Like that kind of thing does annoy me. But I think with her, I think I have more sympathy because it's her job and it's not meant to be. It's like a short stay. And she does actually sometimes try and venture into the city by herself. Kind of like very wide-eyed, childlike.
She did.
Exploration.
She had a little
So
guide.
that's why-
Yeah, she got on the bus. She was just like market, like she wanted to go to some market or something.
Yeah.
So you know, she showed a bit of like kind of bravery in being able to sort of like deal with that by
I'm
herself.
just like the word bazaar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she said bazaar. Yeah. Well, one thing I mentioned in the group chat is that I think that she had a bit of a hard time just because she's a woman. Not from everyone. Definitely the fisherman guy was a bit of an asshole to her, and he's like, "Oh, the fish aren't coming because she's a woman." You know what I mean? And then when she's sitting on the bus, it does feel like she's just one woman surrounded by lots of men. Makes her feel quite uncomfortable there. So I think that's another thing to consider. It's just like, yeah, she does seem a bit scared. She does seem a bit vulnerable, but she's like at times a woman by herself in this country, which I believe, is kind of, has some strong religious and cultural beliefs where she's made to feel uncomfortable because she is a woman, And I don't know about the other women in the film, but do you remember, Arman, the other women, were they kind of like more covered up?
Not massively.
No?
No,
Okay.
they have like some colourful headscarves, but it wasn't like they're wearing burqas or chadors or anything like that. So.
But you could see that everywhere they went, everyone was staring at her and her team, quite awkwardly, and I think particularly at her because she's a woman. You know what I mean? And she seems to be she was the host. They're all just the crew.
And
She was the
wearing
one.
some skirt or something,
She was wearing
showing
what
her
would be.
legs and stuff.
Well, you see, in our society and in Western society, I think that's kind of like modest and normal.
Yeah.
But perhaps in some kind of, let's say Middle Eastern countries, other countries, showing skin might be kind of frowned upon.
Slutty ankles.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But anyway, I think,
Sorry,
please.
Ben, I would like to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think the movie would have been better with a man as a main character? Because from what I understand, guys, most of it is related to her being a woman. So she's afraid because she's a woman. She's dumb because not she's a woman, but she doesn't do her research because she thinks that with her crew she is safe, maybe. Do you think the movie would have been different as
That's
a
a
man?
really interesting question. Let me think about it.
Mm.
But if this person still behaves like that, I don't think it really matters. The gender. Stupid is stupid. There was another moment I was laughing so hard inside. She got lost in the market, and she was filming this cat. She was chasing after this cat and filming it. And when she realized she got lost, she was checking her camera. And in that moment, it was like, oh, finally, you have a brain. You can use it to backtrack. But that was just it. That was just me thinking she was, smart, and she didn't use it. And she can just check the footage, and find her way back.
So the character is written that way. It's not because just she's a woman. So she's more...
I think it's written that way.
I think we'd feel maybe less sympathetic if she wasn't a woman. If it was a male lead.
I'll be brutally honest, I think some male travellers are far more arrogant than female travellers. I think so.
Yeah.
Well, English guys anyway.
Yeah, but you have to remember the fact that it's a Japanese movie, and many Japanese are pretty reserved, especially about other cultures.
True. Yeah.
That's what she is as well. She's very reserved, and I know some Japanese are a lot more open, but that's because they've travelled.
Yeah.
Some other Japanese, they're on islands, like England. You're an island nation, so you're very much like what's around you, and sometimes.
Yeah, but
Uzbekistan really feels a lot further. I mean,
it's pretty
still quite
cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
Japanese isn't.
Yeah.
Japan is very secluded.
And she sang that song twice.
Usually, I'm a...
Not KTV. She was in the theater.
It was a French song.
Yeah, and she was not very good singer. And she
really?
was she was actually this pop group.
Yeah,
she's
a J-pop
from.
singer.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a sec. Was that her singing in the film then? Is that her voice?
Probably. I don't know her that well.
But well, here's the thing.
Nice
Usually I don't like songs in films, but actually I didn't mind this one. I quite enjoyed the music. Yeah, and just sorry, it's probably time for us to move on to the next film. But there was just another, I think, a nice moment in the film with the goat. She goes to kind of free the goat, and then those guys kind of like
free
cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then she
Oku.
thinks she's done something really good, and then the guys turn up and they're like, okay, take our goat back.
Paid them more money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Best supporting actor, Oku, the goat.
Yeah. Right. All right, guys. We should probably move on to the next and final movie of the month to end our international month. we picked Offside from 2006. We don't usually go back that far. We try to keep them, quite contemporary, quite recent, 2021, 2020. But we made a special exception for this one for a few reasons. Ties in kind of well with, the kind of Euro football that's going on at the moment. It's a good ending to International Month. There's another foreign language film. And it's kind of a one that you pushed for as well. For those who don't know, Arman will be leaving us early next month. Yeah, early next month. So not exactly a goodbye film, but just one that you wanted to show before we
I wanted
hiatus.
I'll still as well I'll still be involved in CDFS as much as I can as well.
Sure.
I'll still be the aggressive marketing person.
Yeah.
But for me, we'd not managed to do an Iranian movie. Interestingly, The White Tiger is directed by an Iranian American, Ramin Bahrani.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a movie on my list for months and months and months by Majid Majidi, who's a great Iranian director, very good humanist director. But we just couldn't find it. So in the end, it was like, oh, well, there are recently elections in Iran. It's the Euros, and I want to show it because it's a great movie.
Yeah.
That's the thing. At the end of the day, it was just like, you know what? International Month, let's just cap it off with a well-regarded one, like a classic. So I'm really glad we did. It's, I think, my second or third time seeing it. So before Matt was asking, do we watch these movies before? This movie I actually watched about a week before we screened it, I think. Something like that. Just to get familiar with it again. And then watching it again was fantastic.
Yeah.
really loved watching it again and sharing it with people and getting their insights and their thoughts, especially from a director who's probably the most open with his critiques of Iranian society and its leadership.
Yeah.
And he's still making movies to this day, which is great considering his situation. So I really loved screening it.
Well, it's interesting. I think Damon mentioned something in the film, like from his research about how the director, he had to kind of like be a little bit deceptive about kind of what the script is and whose name is on it and what the film's about.
Yeah, they just said it was about men watching a football game.
Yeah, yeah, that's hilarious. And then, you know, when it came out, he's it seems to me that he's kind of he's ticked off his government, you know, a few times and continues to do so.
Enfant terrible. He's like the government hates him.
Yeah.
He always gets away with it. He always gets his way.
I wonder if because of his popularity, I'm assuming he's quite popular with Iranians, right?
Yeah. Jafar Panahi is the director. Yeah, very popular.
Yeah, I wonder if he's kind of like avoided sort of harsher punishment because of his popularity.
Well, I mean, it's still pretty harsh. I mean,
house arrest, right?
House arrest, and technically he's not allowed to leave the country until 2030, I think.
Oh wow.
Maybe even more.
That's pretty harsh.
I'll give like a small synopsis then.
Yeah.
So basically, it's set in Tehran in 2005, in the midst of elections in the country that are upcoming. But what's happening is that Iran is playing Bahrain in a World Cup qualifying game. It's a crucial game, and the capital is rocking with excitement and anticipation. And we follow a group of 4 or 5 women, and they will try to disguise themselves as men so they can enter the stadium to watch the game. In Iran, women can't watch men's sporting events, men can't watch women's sporting events, so quite a sexist law. And also another factor to know is that if they're caught, they will be punished. So there is this element of fear within the movie as well, and confronting the sexist aspects of Iran's modern leadership and challenging a lot of modern attitudes in Iran as well, whilst highlighting the strength, ingenuity and the wit of a lot of modern Iranian women, who I'd say are smarter than the men, to be honest.
Well,
that's not me trying to sound woke, they are.
No, that definitely came across in the film, actually. The women came across as kind of, you know, smart, quite liberal, and even able to outsmart the security guards, who are portrayed as actually incredibly dumb. But at the same time, there was that main one who was just, he's very dopey, but he's so likable and he's quite cute as well.
Yeah.
I think you know that. I think his kind of dynamic, the relationship that he had with the women, was probably my favorite thing about the movie. It was basically like he's just this dumb little kid, you know, but he has the power because he's a man, you know. But they're the ones who actually kind of know what they're talking about. They're smart, and you know, he could never really give a good reason as to why they're not allowed to watch the game.
Well, that's the thing,
You
because
know?
there is no good reason.
Well, yeah, it's pure sexism, isn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even the other one who's quite adorable. he's like from the northeast, so he's an ethnic minority as well. The other guy, the commentator.
Yeah.
I think he does innocently believe what he's saying. It's like, oh, you can't hear these dirty things. These men are gonna swear and do this and that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
So I think he does innocently, genuinely believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
But really, there's no good reason for
No.
it. You know, if you genuinely fear that, but if you could reform it by having just a women and children's section, as they've done in some games in Turkey or the Middle East.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think it's interesting that, well, I could be wrong here, but in that film, during the game, I think there were women who actually managed to kind of slip through
They did.
and watch the game, and it's only the ones they were just unlucky to get caught.
Yeah, and there's an
weren't they?
interesting facet within the movie that I guess the main street smart woman, who's a bit more brash and quite smart. She
The
says,
short-haired one, yeah?
Why can the Japanese women watch this?
Exactly,
That
yeah.
was my crime that I was born in Iran.
Yeah, right,
So
yeah.
I think that was a great scene as well. I think with the guards, I wouldn't call them dumb. I'd say they're like simple. They're country folk.
Yeah,
There's a
no,
thing
sorry,
where another-
I don't want to
another
call
guard is
them
just like,
dumb,
oh,
it's
you know,
just, yeah.
You can't trick me. You can't trick me like these provincial boys, because that's the thing, is they're a lot more trusting and honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as much as they kind of like did discriminate towards the women, I thought it was quite nice, like how strongly that one guard tried to protect the woman from like other men kind of coming into the bathroom. Quite in some ways quite honourable.
Yeah, and there's another scene where there's a lineup. a bit scattered how I'm analysing it now. And one woman who's kind of in her kind of sporty gear then has to put on a face veil. So
yes,
you
that's
can't
right.
see this. So in Iran, a lot of women have not a lot, some. You know, I know what the media likes to show. It's like, oh, look at all these women wearing dark clothes. Oh, how awful. So some women wear a thing called a chador, which is covering their body, but you still see their face. So that's not a burqa or a niqab.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's different.
Right,
so if
right,
you wear
yeah.
a burqa or a niqab in Iran, people know you're an Arab or an Afghan. And they'll look at you like you're a weird person.
Right, so just so we're clear about this, what's this item of clothing called?
Chador.
Chador. So it covers the whole body apart from the face.
Yep.
And a burqa that covers everything apart from the eyes.
And niqab is everything.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
So niqab you can see often in Afghanistan.
Okay, but there must be some kind of like meshed kind of thing for the woman to.
sure,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
yeah.
If they're allowed outside.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, again, not strongly related to the film, but I've heard that with a burqa, sometimes like the vision is even cut off right here, so that you know when the woman turns her head to look, so you know exactly who or what she's looking at. She can't move her eyes kind of sides, so she must move her head. So almost another way of tracking exactly what the woman is doing. Anyway, Matt, you watched this film just today, right?
Yeah. Ben, do you want to go first, maybe?
Okay, sure. Yeah, Ben, did you watch this here with us?
I came here thanks to the marketing guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because I had some hesitation before I came here, because it had to do with football, and I am not a football person.
Right. It's a good thing. I think Armand did market it though as a film which is not really about football. But then when you look at the poster, it's easy to be misled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really surprised me. You know, probably, well, I think it's kind of unique. You know, I wouldn't compare with other three I saw here, because it sort of goes against everything I like about the film. For example, I like a strong story.
Yes.
So it has to be like story driven. But this one has like no real story. I just get to see people as people and events unfold. Right? It has this kind of
It's all about the characters, isn't it?
documentary kind of vibe. Yeah. So that was really interesting. Another thing, I think the director used a lot of handheld camera, so this kind of shaky thing, you know, like he's chasing all the characters. I usually hate that, but I think for this one it really worked.
Yeah. I think like Damon said in the film, this movie kind of blends reality with fiction. It's kind of like almost like a half documentary, because technically they're filming the stadium stuff whilst the game is happening, right? And it's just, they only really had kind of I guess one shot at that, because so it's a nice blending of like reality.
It's quite a common Iranian. They like blurring the line between fiction and reality.
Yeah.
Some movies are a lot more than this one. There's some that really kind of bend your mind as to what's actually real.
Right.
Because Iranian movies like to use amateur actors. It's kind of similar. I think it's inspired by Italian neo-realism. So movies like Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves, like the use of a child actor, of an amateur. The idea of it feels very real, like a documentary. So that's where a lot of Iranian cinema gets its inspiration from.
Yeah.
Especially Abbas Kiarostami and Jafar Panahi.
Okay. Yeah.
And the girls, I actually noticed this in the ending credit. They have no names.
Oh.
You know, the credit says "smoking girl" or some other kind of girl.
Like in the film, they were not given names. They weren't even referred to by their names. They were just like female number 1, female number 2, or whatever.
So I really like that. You know, it's kind of what's the noun form for anonymous? Anonymity?
Anonymity.
Yeah. That word.
Yeah.
Really, really mouthful. Right. Anyway, I really like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I really like that soldier girl. You know, she saw the uniform of soldier, and she was handcuffed.
Yeah, I guess that signifies a more serious offense than just trying to sneak into the game.
And they all have different personalities.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah. I think one of the criticisms of the film from someone in the group is that maybe they tried to explore like the individual personalities a little bit too much when it wasn't all that necessary. But but no, I think it was nice to see that they were quite like distinctly different.
Yeah, and there's a lot of dialogues. Because at one point I was
Very
thinking,
dialogue heavy. Yeah.
this could be stage production.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was sitting there and I had this thought.
Yeah.
Stage production.
That's cool. Yeah. Matt, so let's come back to you. You watched this just today. Thanks for catching up on it. Yeah, so you could
I tried my best.
Yeah, you could tick the boxes for 3 out of 5. Good job. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I actually was on my way here on Wednesday because I told you I would
that's
come.
right. Yeah, you couldn't
And
make
at that
it.
moment something showed up and I had to cancel.
Yeah.
But I tried my best to watch it before I come here because I thought there would be an interesting movie to talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
Why? Because this movie is about 2 things I don't care about. Modern feminism and soccer.
Yeah.
So the one thing I cared about, however, is that it's a movie from 2006, which is not politically plagued by the stuff from today, modern media. So I was like, okay, a movie from 20 years ago, 15 years ago, from a country I don't know much about, I'm gonna check the trailer. And the trailer was like, seems genuine, seems fun, seems lighthearted. I want to know more about this.
We actually tried to avoid pushing the trailer too much, didn't we?
Like it,
Yeah, but this is what I do sometimes. When I know that there is not much to know about the story, since it's character-driven, like Ben said, I was like, I want to know about the vibe of the movie. And the first thing I saw in the trailer was the characters were pretty likable, both men and women. And that made me more confident about watching it. Because the thing I don't like about modern feminism is that women are strong because men are weak. There's no equality. In this one, despite the fact that it was about sexism, I found the characters, male and female, pretty relatable throughout the movie. No man say, you're a woman, so you are inferior to me. And there's no backlash in this way. From the beginning in the movie, one of them is hiding in a bus full of men, and one guy is like, there is a woman here. And the other one says, yeah, don't say that, you're going to blow her cover. Which means he knows there is a woman there, and he doesn't want to make her in trouble. So that's sweet. I like the fact that it's not about the cultural society, it's about the government mostly. And you mentioned that many men who are soldiers, they are simpletons. They just think that because they're women, they should be treated like this. I believe they're just following orders. They have responsibility. The main character says, I don't want to be here. I have a farm. I have to take care of my sick mother. But you girls, you are pissing me off because I'm supposed to be here when I should be at home doing something more important for my life. It's not like, you're a woman, you're doing something you should not do. And this is really interesting. It shows that it's not about them being women. It's about them trespassing and putting other people in danger of losing their job because they're soldiers, they have responsibilities. I like that a lot. I like the fact that it's very much about how they interact with each other as well. There are some good moments when the girls say, what if there are Japanese women in the game? Well, they can, because they can't understand the swearing and read the swearing as well in the toilet, so they can. What about if a man dresses up as a woman? Would it be a crime? There are no answers in the movie, but the movie still pushes the questions, and I like that. It gives you some way to think about it without giving you the answer. This is a good thing.
It feels like that is the director kind of like very purposefully putting those questions in.
Exactly, but it's
like
not
almost directly kind of asking the government of his country
to
try and answer these questions.
Now, something I want to mention, Ben, as well, that you did really well, is to talk about the handheld camera. I like the fact it was almost a documentary for 3 reasons. First, it is a very tiny budget, you can see that. So obviously they have to go with a handheld camera. They can't bring the traveling stuff. Second, this is what it's called guerrilla filmmaking. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this. It's when you're making a movie without the authorization of the government, usually because of money or because of the law. So they are supposed to not be watching this game, but they are there. He is not supposed to make a movie about women watching the game, but he is here. and he's taking the events while they are happening, because he made the movie while there was a World Cup something going on, a real football game. So what he did in reality reflects what they did in the fiction. And this is why the handheld documentary works really well, because it puts you in their shoes as well. So I like that a lot. I like the fact that no character is definitely an asshole, especially the men. They are pretty likable, and you show where they're coming from. And that the women were not particularly obnoxious either, like the one from To the End of the Earth, because they're just here as fans of football. And the moments when they have this communion between the men and the women is when they share their love of the sport. And I love that at the end, when they actually get together, and it's really
I
sweet
really felt the passion.
and heartwarming. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, it's towards the end of the films where it's kind of it feels like the rules have gone out of the window a little bit. You know what I mean? Because this kind of like something really big has happened that's kind of made the country almost kind of. There's a collective celebration. It's kind of just like we, I don't care if you're like a man or a woman. I don't care if like we have two different sexes. In this one bus. I don't care if you've got firecrackers, whatever.
We
it's
have
like
the same passion
all
for
of the
game.
rules go out the window because of this thing that's happened that's united us. So that was a really lovely moment of the film, and I like that they spent a good amount of time on that. Actually, it was a good 15, maybe 20 minutes.
At the end, I think it's because most people celebrating in the street were actually celebrating.
Sure, yeah.
So once again, he took real footage and put it in his movie. Yeah. Because you have to understand that most of the actors who are the main characters were non-professional as well.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So there is no household name, despite the fact that I don't know anything about Iran cinema. There is no household names. They took amateurs and make it within the real events of the football game.
Yeah. But I like what you said about how it's kind of more about, it's not you're a woman so you shouldn't be here. It's just like, it's my job to follow the rules. I don't really want to do this, you know what I mean? It's just like, stop asking me these questions which I can't answer. I'm just doing my job.
I know. I don't think this movie would have been made the same way today. Men would have been much more asshole-ish.
Yeah.
Because you would have been... they would not have been able to write the women stronger.
Yeah.
They would have been make the women weaker in comparison. That's what they do a lot nowadays. That's why I don't like modern feminist movies.
You could draw parallels to the Promising Young Woman. Where it's just like all men are assholes,
this is
and
why I
like,
didn't see it.
all women are like victims and stuff like that.
If you have something women in a title in 2021, avoid it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say something that might. I don't really like this idea of like pitting like one form of feminism versus this Iranian one, because this might be controversial. A lot of people are like, oh, but these are women who actually have issues. Oh, that's to me somehow how the criticism comes off. Not now, but that's how sometimes it comes off. Because like, oh, these are women with real issues, and they do have very serious issues that are far more pressing than societies we live in or places we come from. What I think the movie stresses, and this idea of like, oh, men versus women is within Iranian literary culture and film culture, there's a huge strain of humanism. Iranians just love people. They have a huge love for all their fellow man, whether it's the poet Sadi from the 13th century, whether it's Abbas Kiarostami, whether it's Jafar Panahi. They love humans. They have this idea that we are, humankind, mankind, we're all connected. And especially with the Iranians, the flow, the rhythm, how they talk, it's slightly joyful. There's a slight musical rhythm to it. Even the way the one guard, Samandar, his name is, the one who's yelling, and the smoking girl, the way they like back and forth is quite nice. It has a nice rhythm to it, which is quite enjoyable. But I think with this, the reason why it doesn't just go down to, and a lot of movies are like that, which is fair, which is like, oh, women are this or men are this. This movie isn't concerned about that. And a lot of Iranian movies aren't concerned about that. It's humans.
And this is what I'm saying. It's more about humanism versus the political message. And nowadays, it would be more about the political message than the characters.
All right. Okay, guys. Does anyone have anything more to say about Offside?
Yes, just very quickly.
Sure.
But before, Ben, do you have anything
No.
else? No, you good?
Yeah, okay.
Usually when I finish talking about a movie, I like to recommend others. So I do not know much about Iranian movies, but I have seen Persepolis from 2006, which is the same year as Offside, made by a French immigrant from Iranian, Marian Satrapi, who talks about growing up in Iran in the 80s. It's animated, black and white, Oscar of Best Foreign Animated Movies. Really good, I recommend it. And I have seen Children of Heaven from 1997. I think it's Kiarostami. I'm not sure.
Majid Majidi.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, and it's not famous outside of Iran. It was still nominated for Best Foreign Movie at the time. So if you guys like older movies, Children of Heaven is really good. And finally, if you like to know more about movies that talk about feminism in sports, Bend It Like Beckham, because you're from the UK. It's pretty famous. It's light-hearted, it's cheesy, but it has good acting and good message.
This came up briefly in our conversation when it came to possible.
It's
possible
2001,
movies.
right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
With a very young Keira Knightley and an Indian girl.
Yeah, I think probably British Indian actress. I think
And finally, one of the movies I would recommend, because it's about social struggle as much as sport, is the Indian movie Lagan from 2001
with Amir Khan.
This is Amir Khan, one of the most famous movies from India.
Yes.
It's 3 hours. It's Bollywood all the way with a lot of songs and really funny moments, but it's extremely hearted.
Not as typically Bollywood as others, I think.
No, this is why it went further internationally, because people. I think this is the first Indian movie most people outside of India actually saw.
Yeah.
And this is about a team of people from India, from a poor village over British dominion. They learn how to play cricket, which is a British sport. And
it's them playing against the East India Company, is that right?
Yeah, exactly,
Something like
the East India Company, which was taking over India at that time,
yeah.
right? So it's also about social struggles, not just feminism, but social. And also about sports, and the sport is at the same time in the background and the foreground, but the most important is the characters, just like Offside.
Yeah.
That's my final word.
Great, okay.
Sorry. I would like to. So thanks, Matt. There were some like good Iranian films. If you want more like related to like women in Iran or Jafar Panahi, he made a movie 6 years before Offside called The Circle. Again, similar themes, exploring women's roles in society. If you want Abbas Kiarostami, there's a fascinating, great movie that's very, very much blurs documentary reality called 10. So that stars a professional actress as a taxi driver, and she just picks up 10 random women. These could be anyone in Iranian society. It could be a really devout Muslim woman. It could be a woman suffering with cancer. There's one woman who's completely blurred out because she's a prostitute, and it's just conversations they have in the taxi about modern Iran. As well as this, with something more modern, there's the vampire horror A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and a filmmaker like Samira Makhmalbaf, who's really great. But yeah, a lot of Iranian cinema does this thing of blurring reality and fiction and feeling like a documentary. And Jafar Panahi has made a lot of challenging films to the Iranian government, and he's still managed to make movies.
I think there is a documentary made about him called "This Is Not a Movie."
Yeah. This is him. That's him making.
That's him making a movie about himself.
He got it to Cannes because he put it on a USB and they put it in a cake. That's how he did it. And recently, he's made. You can find it actually. I don't think we'll show it movie now, so I'll say you can find it on YouTube actually, called Free Faces by Jafar Panahi. It has Panahi play himself. It has an actress play herself. And they're trying to find this girl who they think has committed a very drastic action. So it starts very, that kind of guerrilla style, like handheld filmmaking by this girl, filming how she's been betrayed, and again exploring her role within a conservative family. So Jafar Panahi is a really great filmmaker. And again, like The Circle by him or 10 by Abbas Kiarostami are great for exploring women in Iran.
Is it the one who made Taxi?
Jafar Panahi? Yeah, Taxi Tehran, yeah. That's him, yeah. But he's also done a movie called Crimson Gold that has a schizophrenic actor in it. And it's about people who are driven to crime. And Jafar Panahi's also done a movie called The White Balloon and the Mirror, which I also need to catch up and see. So, Crimson Gold, if you like Iranian cinema, is directed by Panahi but written by Abbas Kiarostami.
Have you seen Children of Heaven yourself?
I've seen bits here and there when I was growing up in Iran. So a lot of these movies, sometimes I know them and I like them, but it's been a long, long time. And Children of Heaven actually is quite popular in China. It pops up on my channels.
Do you know it, Ben?
Yeah. If I show the Chinese name, I can probably show you the moment. It's the girl who, the child actor. So China likes that movie, I think, if I see Iranian cinema.
All right, guys. Well, I think it's about time to wrap it up there. I think just before we finish, very quickly, you can just say your movie of the month, your recommendation. For me, 5 really good movies last month. But if I have to choose one that kind of really spoke to me, it would be The White Tiger. I guess because I've read the novel, because my ethnic background is Indian. And I think they did this story of kind of low-level driver to entrepreneur with deception and violence and everything else. I would say that if you haven't seen that, do watch it. You can catch it on Netflix, I believe, and of course there are other ways to get hold of it as well. Ben, do you have a particular movie of the month that you would recommend?
Offside, definitely, because it's so special.
Yeah.
And this really surprised me, watching that. And it actually made me feel the people's passion for football in the end. Because I don't have the passion for that. But it made me feel that passion, so I think that was great. It was really well done.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Matt?
Yeah, definitely To the End of the World. I'm joking, of course. Riders of Justice all the way. This is the superior movie I have seen that I didn't expect to see in 2021, where most movies are really average and safe to not offend anyone. This one doesn't hold back. It has great chemistry between amazing actors. It has well-written dialogue with good translation. It has amazing, I already said it, but really good twists and turns all the way through the movie. I know someone who has seen half the movie. She stopped because she thought it would be very cliche. But if you go all the way, you realize that it's not what you expect at all. It is funny, it is sad, you can cry of laughter, and then because of the tragedy. It's a movie that doesn't leave you like most other movies without a lasting impression. This movie, I can keep thinking about it, and I will definitely watch it again very soon. And very close after that, I would say Offside, just because it's sweet, light-hearted, doesn't take side, and show you a culture of a movie of a country that you may not know much about.
Okay, thank you. And Amar?
It's very difficult. I completely agree with everything Matt said about Riders of Justice. Just give it a chance. Avoid the horrific marketing.
Avoid the marketing.
Yeah.
It's
Just
awful.
go into it knowing it's Mads Mikkelsen in a Danish movie. What could possibly go wrong? It's going to be good. Or he's going to be great in it. So I think from the modern ones, I think I would agree I'd pick Riders of Justice. I'm very biased, but Offside, I love that movie. And it's great seeing a movie where the government's critiqued, where the people are celebrated, and you have empathy for them. And it's a wonderful exploration of Persian humanism and joy. And there were times where I felt like I was back in the country. When I'd visited on some summers back home to see my family in Iran, and we'd dance in the streets, or there'd be all the cars were honking for a wedding or some good result that had happened. So definitely that. But I really liked all the movies. Like I'd say, I still liked it, but the weakest one for me was To the Ends of the Earth. And definitely people should check out Summer of '85, a sweet romantic movie. And The White Tiger 2 is on Netflix as well. So I think all are good. All are good.
Yeah. All right, guys. So I think we'll wrap it up there. I think this has been our longest podcast yet, at nearly 2 hours.
Are you gonna edit most of it?
I don't think I'll edit any of it. No. Yes, just before we finish, I can tell you guys here that Caitlin is also with us, having a great time.
A really great time. Thank you.
Yeah. She's not sleepy at all. Yeah.
Oh.
All right, guys. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Yeah.